Hello, everyone. I'm Cook County Commissioner Kevin Morrison. I represent the 15th district in the northwest suburbs of Cook County. I want to thank Shy Hack Night for having me here, and for all of you who are in attendance. Hopefully everyone's keeping healthy out there. I'm hoping to give you all some insight into Cook County, into the Cook County Board of Commissioners, and more specifically, my role as the Cook County Technology and Innovation Committee Chair. Some of you may have asked, and don't feel bad if you have done so, what is the Cook County Board of Commissioners? As I'm knocking doors throughout my district, that's one of the most common questions I hear is, what is a county commissioner? So I'm going to give a little bit of an overview to start about the board. We are the legislative body of Cook County government. There are 17 commissioner districts. Mine is in the far northwest corner of the county. We all serve 4-year terms. We also wear 2 hats. So we're also elected as commissioners for Cook County government, but also we are Cook County Forest Preserve commissioners as well. And so we manage over the Forest Preserve districts of Cook County. Major policy areas include transportation, healthcare, criminal justice, and the environment. Cook County, we operate a public health system, which is one of the largest safety nets in the entire county, as well as the state, providing over 52% of the charity care that occurs in the county. We act as the fiduciary agent for the county, voting on the annual budget and contracts for all of county offices. We work closely with our local elected officials, mayors, township supervisors, our state legislators as well. You'll see on the next slide a bit of an overview organizational chart of Cook County government. It's a little different than something like city government, since the county has many separately elected offices. Although those offices have their budgets approved by the County Board of Commissioners, they are independent in running their day-to-day. So here is kind of a breakdown of what our county government looks like. You see some of the important elected officials whose budgets we vote on: the sheriff, the assessor, the clerk, the president's office, the state's attorney. There are also some appointees. Another big office is like the chief judge. So there's a lot of critical components that fall under county government. I'm gonna next move a little bit into some background on myself. So I grew up in Chicago. I was born in the city and moved at 10 to the northwest suburbs. I grew up in Elk Grove Village, whereas I finished my education. I was elected in 2018 as the youngest and first openly LGBTQ person to ever be elected to the Cook County Board of Commissioners. I was elected when I was 28. We have 17 municipalities that I cover in the 15th district, which include Schaumburg, Elk Grove Village, Elgin, Hoffman Estates, Barrington, Hanover Park, and several more. Some of my top priorities since I was elected include small business assistance, mental health, the environment, and technology. I became chairman of the Cook County Technology and Innovation Committee in 2019. Fun fact, I speak 3 languages, English, of course, but I also speak Italian and Spanish. Some of the things that kind of got me interested in government and advocacy. Growing up in the city, my grandparents were Italian immigrants. They started a restaurant 53 years ago, but when I was growing up, it was my mom and my aunt who owned and operated the restaurant. And some of my earliest memories were seeing customers ask to speak to the owner. And my mom would come out and the customer would look her in the face and go, "Excuse me, I asked to speak to the owner." And so from a very young age, I started to recognize some of the inequities and issues that continued to plague our society. And so as someone who has always been kind of solutions focused, I have tried to dedicate my life to finding ways to help communities and help better the world. And so it's been exciting these past 2 years to be a part of the county and helping see policies get passed that are going to outlive me. And so moving on to the next slide. One second. There we go. These are some of the legislative accomplishments that I've helped champion over my past 3 years. The Voting Opportunity and Translation Equity Ordinance, expanded language access on the ballot for suburban Cook County voters. I was really excited to get this passed. It expanded the languages offered on the ballot from 4 to 12 languages back in 2020, and was up and running, ready for that next upcoming 2020 primary. Some of the languages that were added are Gujarati, Arabic, Urdu. One that's probably a shock to all of you, one of our largest populations of ESL languages spoken at home in suburban Cook County is Polish, and we did not offer Polish on the ballot prior to passing the vote ordinance. When I first put this forward, I was actually told that would cost too much and it was a non-starter. We actually were able to get this passed unanimously at a minute fraction of what they originally thought it was going to cost. So I'm glad that we kept pushing and got that through. We passed the residential tenant landlord ordinance, which established tenant protections for nearly 250,000 households in suburban Cook County. It aligned tenant protections with the city of Chicago's RLTO, which was established in the 1980s. So now suburban Cook County residents have those crucial protections. Just for some background, a lot of the policies that protect renters are in case law. And so if you are a low-income renter and your landlord is breaking the law, that means that renter is going to have to foot the bill for an attorney in order to see their rights protected. The RTLO changes that. So if you're an individual who has a landlord who's breaking the law, the landlord is going to then be responsible for your attorney's fees. So this really opens the doors to protect some of the most at-risk populations here in the county. I also helped pass and sponsor the Gender Inclusive Documents and Forms Ordinance, which updated all county forms to offer more inclusive options for gender identity and eliminate sex assigned at birth questions unless absolutely necessary, while also including why that question was being asked in the first place. I've worked from day one to prioritize equity in all we're doing at the county, and that is reflective in these 3 pieces of legislation. Technology has played a critical role in all of these legislative initiatives. For example, in the voter ordinance, we relied on current technology contracts that the county clerk had to expand the 8 additional languages on touchscreen voting machines for the 2020 primary election, while behind the scene work was done to get printed ballots in each language for future elections. The technical expertise of the Bureau of Technology and other technology stakeholders heavily influenced the language and implementation plan for the Gender Inclusive Documents and Forms Ordinance. Those experts had insight into how to translate this policy of wanting to have more inclusive documents at the county into reality with the technology that still needed to evolve. Technology systems are at the heart of most of the work we do at the county. One of the things that I've helped champion since becoming chair of the technology committee, I introduced, with the input of the Cook County Bureau of Technology, a reporting ordinance. This was intended to provide greater transparency, accountability, and really more clarity in how technology is being operated in the county. Prior to this, the passage of this ordinance in July of 2021, there were no formal reports for separately elected offices on technology projects, believe it or not. This ordinance provides a structure to provide regular reporting on all facets of information technology at Cook County from all major offices. So transparency is always key, and I'm excited that we're seeing this change, and it's really led to some really robust conversation in our tech committee meetings. Let's see. So I became chair of the Technology and Innovation Committee in 2019. This committee convenes to vote on all major technology projects over $1 million. The committee also receives reports and updates detailed in the Cook County Information Technology Reporting Ordinance. The committee works closely with the Cook County Bureau of Technology and other technology stakeholders as major technology issues arise for local governments through the budget process, briefings, and cross-departmental meetings. I was proud to take over as chairman in 2019. This gave me some critical insights into how these technology systems worked and what more we could do to make these work to improve service delivery for our constituents. I added this slide because everything we've done in government in the last 2 years has been touched by COVID. I'm incredibly grateful and proud of Cook County's Bureau of Technology under Tom Lynch, our Chief Information Officer, who's actually with us today, for everything they did during the pandemic. We had large-scale technology projects which required working across all of our departments. Bureau of Technology worked to help a large portion of the 22,000 plus Cook County employees move to remote access in a matter of weeks, which was no easy task, but we were able to get it done. Standing up mass testing and vaccine appointment sites. Technology was and is a key component in our COVID response and recovery. The pandemic has forced us to think differently, which is not always a bad thing. COVID forced us to work differently, which has been challenging, but which has also given us an opportunity to reimagine how government works. That has given way to new programs and initiatives, including something that I've been working towards since I've been in office, a new dedicated office of mental health. As all of you know, the conversations concerning mental health have definitely been on the rise over the past 2 years during this pandemic, which I was kind of excited about because we really need to destroy the stigma of mental health in our society, because I always say getting mental health assistance is a strength and never a weakness. I pushed for 3 years, and if there was ever a silver lining to the pandemic, it was getting my counterparts on the board, as well as leaders in separately elected offices, as well as other departments, to also see the critical need of expanding mental and behavioral health services in the county, and creating a office of mental health with that specific focus is really going to help fill some of those holes that we have in the mental health landscape in the county. What's the future of technology at the county? So where do we go from here? Here are a couple key points that help guide the way I see the future of technology in the county. Trust the experts. Cook County only recently in the last decade professionalized a full technology team. And they're an incredible team of folks. We're really excited to have them here, but we need to continue to invest in this type of quality talent. We have to prioritize cybersecurity. I'm sure this is no shock to any group part of ShyHack, but there are some bad hackers out there. So it is key that governments, local, state, and national, face increasing threats by state actors, as well as individuals. We need to make sure that we have protections in place. Cook County continues to expand capacity to face threats and recruit top talent to keep our system secure. This is something that I've made a focus of mine since becoming chair of technology. It comes up in every single committee meeting we have, as well as my briefings. I'm always trying to prioritize and make sure that we're doing everything we can to stay ahead of the game and make sure that our technology systems are running the most up-to-date and ensuring, as you see in the next bullet, that we're modernizing, right? Moving massive constituent-facing technology off our mainframe technology that is well over 30 years old. That has been something that I've helped quicken the pace. As I mentioned earlier, we have many separately elected offices that we work with. Getting everyone to stick to a time frame has not always been simple at Cook County, but we've really made that a focus over the past 2 years, and we're getting there. And there's actually a end to the timeline where we have systems still operating off the mainframe. Invest in technology systems that connect county offices, that collaborate, including property tax offices and criminal justice offices. It's incredibly important that all the different technology that's being utilized at the county is able to interact in a functional manner that makes things simple and easy for our residents to utilize. Update technology systems to improve the user experience. That is it on my slides, and I'm really, again, just want to say I'm happy that I have this opportunity to be with all of you this evening. I see that at 7:30, so I came really close to that 7:35 mark, but I'm more interested in hearing what the folks at CHI-HAC want to know more about. So I'm ready to take your questions, and I thank you again for being here.
Wonderful, thank you. Yeah, right on the money. Great job. And we'll have about 30 minutes or so for Q&A. So we got a few in the chat. And again, reminder to folks, if you do have questions for the commissioner, please type them in the chat and we will get to them. And we got a few already. One that actually I was thinking of as you were talking about the gender inclusive language, when you were implementing that at the county, were there examples from other jurisdictions or places that you looked to inform how that was done or how it was designed? And then I guess the second part of that question is, after it was rolled out, do you see the county as being able to help provide some of your own guidance through your own experience about how other, maybe smaller or regional jurisdictions can follow suit?
Yeah, no, of course. And so we always try to look, and we never want to reinvent the wheel. So we're always looking to see what has worked in other jurisdictions around the country. For example, some of the ideas I've been moving forward on the mental health front, I learned from visiting and seeing firsthand what was going on in LA County back when travel was a thing in my first year in office. But no, we worked with stakeholders in the LGBTQ community to really help us not only write the ordinance, but make sure that we were doing it correctly. And during those conversations and looking at certain pieces of legislation that had been passed elsewhere and at the city of Chicago, we also learned things along the way. We had components of the county that were being gender inclusive. For example, Cook County Health, when they rolled out the COVID vaccination sign-up site, there was a question that pertained to sex assigned at birth. And I actually had a transgender individual in Cook County reach out to me and ask why that was being asked and was concerned about that question. And so when we ultimately passed the gender inclusive forms ordinance, that's the reason why if there is going to be a question that pertains to sex assigned at birth, they have to explain why that question is being asked in the first place. And so for the COVID pandemic, why it related to vaccines and why that question was even being considered or was important turned out to be based on the science and the fact that people who were identified as male at birth, sex assigned male at birth, it was seen had potentially more severe negative health outcomes if they contracted COVID. And so that's why that question was being asked in that manner, so we could prioritize the most at-risk individuals in the county when it came to vaccine distribution. But yes, no, we are always looking to see what policies have been done and implemented across the nation at county, state, city level, something to look at and either utilize if it worked well, but also improve upon if improvements are necessary.
Thank you. That was really a lot of information there. Another question that we had is, you mentioned remote work and mental health awareness as things that the pandemic sort of forced you to think about in a different way compared to pre-pandemic. Are there other topics also that are like things that are possible post-pandemic or things that are necessary to think about? Any other things that the pandemic is?
I think the pandemic has made us think not just in mental health or remote work, but going to remote work. I did have to buy more pairs of sweatpants since I was working home all the time. We had to be comfortable. And I have 2 cats. So, you know, you don't want to be wearing jeans at the house because then they get covered in hair. But no, I would say that, you know, something that me and my office have been talking about recently is the importance of getting regular health checkups, right? Like it is recommended by our doctors, if you don't have, other health issues, you are supposed to get blood work done on an annual basis, right? And that could be a critical indicator to say, if anything's off, or, one of the first ways to identify if you might have cancer, for example. And during the pandemic, a lot of individuals were resistant to go and get those checkups. And, unfortunately, we have seen an increase in really negative health outcomes for individuals who, may have skipped that annual check-in. And, I actually lost someone who, a few months back ended up finding out they had stage 4 cancer and ended up passing the following month. So right now in my office is thinking about how can we prioritize at the county to help incentivize our county staff to go for those regular checkups, because it is actually incredibly cost effective. One of the reasons why healthcare is so expensive in this country is because individuals often catch a illness later down in that timeline, and treatment at that moment actually costs a lot more. And so one thing that I've been thinking about is how do we get individuals into these conversations of, really taking care of their health. I think we've learned about being more respectful to each other. If you have a cold or you're not feeling that well, I think more people today are more cautious about, spreading their germs to others, taking more proactive steps to make sure that it's not COVID or the flu or what have you. And maybe, asking to be able to work remotely or taking a couple days off until they feel better. I think a lot of conversations around how we can improve upon public transportation have definitely been at the fold in light of the pandemic. A lot of folks moved away from public transportation, and then as soon as people started working again, that traffic built up on the 90, especially for me, since I'm coming from the northwest suburbs. Those times started slowly but surely ticking back up to where they used to be. I think it's exciting with the federal bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed. I'm excited to see what public transportation expansion opportunities are going to be availed to the county. I think there's really some exciting things in the works there. But those are just a few.
Great. So we got a question in the chat a little bit about procurement, which is such a fun topic. And I had a question that I was thinking of during your talk as well related to procurement. So I'll kind of merge them together. So just kind of the question in the chat is generally like, how does it work and how is it not working? Procurement, how is it working for technology in the county? And I'm kind of also curious, you mentioned a long list of projects that the county has accomplished recently and is continuing to work on. Can you share a little bit more about like what's the mix? Like how much of that work, if you can give a percentage or some rough amount, how much of that is done internally with like internal staff and how much of it is contracted out to vendors? And do you see that as being good right now or should it change? And where do you see that maybe going or would you like to see that go in the future?
Yeah. And before I answer, could you add a little bit more specifics to your second question? Are you talking about the ordinances?
Yeah, I think obviously there's a legislative piece, but like thinking about the implementation, right, of all the different projects that are happening that are implemented, how much, what percentage of that is done with internal staff, like by their hands versus contracting it out to a vendor, right? And I understand there's probably a mix right there where like, there'll maybe be a combination, but just generally think like, is that something that you could answer as far as like, what's the sort of mix look like as far as large numbers?
I would say it depends on the policy.
Yeah.
For example, when it came to trying to create, greater transparency at our technology committee meetings, that was something that we worked with the Bureau of Technology on from day one to really make sure that we got it right. And we're trying to fill some of the holes that we had in terms of some of the information that we wanted to provide to the public. Now, sometimes like with the vote ordinance, that began with conversations with me and my co-sponsor, Commissioner Scott Britton. Commissioner Britton and I got approached early on from the Korean American community about how they have tried to step up to help individuals who may speak English but are only reading Korean be able to have the right to vote recognized. And that's where that conversation started about how do we expand upon the languages that are necessary in terms of being able to access the ballot. And so that started with constituents reaching out to us. We tried to we utilize the federal policy, which doesn't go broad enough because it only included 4 languages as opposed to the 12 that have communities of over 12,000 in suburban Cook County. So we were able to expand upon that. And then, once we were kind of working on the ordinance already, we were working with different departments to assist in, making sure that we were going to be able to put forward a policy that not only, especially in the case of the voter ordinance, was fiscally responsible because we didn't have to waste a lot of paper. We were able to use the machine voting booths, which was a lot easier in terms of being able to switch from one language to another, but also working with departments to make sure that it fell in line with the operations of the clerk's office, for example, who run our voting systems. Now, when it comes to procurement, us as commissioners are completely hands off. We have a procurement department. Our RFPs are made public, and there's a certain timeline for applications to be filled. And so we do have Tom Lynch, our CIO. Is there anything in terms of procurement, Tom, that you would like to add?
Thanks, Commissioner. Yeah, it's a really interesting question. I actually appreciate, Derek, you're asking it. I was thinking of a good way to answer it. It's a little bit complex, so I'll try as best I can. We have some guiding principles that we use in both choosing technologies and then how best to implement them. So we always first try to buy an existing solution rather than build from scratch. And we also want to reuse platforms that we already have in place rather than buying a new technology, both for staff skills and then long-term supportability, as well as interoperability across office technologies. And then ultimately, I guess I would say sort of our last resort would be custom coding. We try to avoid it as much as possible, really for support reasons more than any. So in the example of the gender inclusive language changes that the commissioner spoke to, we're leveraging DocuSign. We looked hard at both Adobe as well as DocuSign, their competitor, ultimately decided to go with DocuSign. We've established that as an enterprise solution now. So it's an enterprise standard across the elected offices, again, mostly for interoperability and support purposes. But what's nice about that is the technology platform sort of informed and supports the policy objective, because like many large jurisdictions, we still have a whole bunch of PDFs. In some cases, they may be 20-year-old forms that somebody scanned and nobody has an original copy of, or what have you. So as we were going through each of these forms to validate the questions asked, the appropriateness of the questions conformant with the ordinance, it gave us a chance to perhaps change the language, the functionality, what data fields are captured and what was missing or what should have been improved, and then automate them. So many of those forms, either with DocuSign or Microsoft Forms, we've now made available directly online. So it was a scanned hard copy PDF, which of course causes other problems in terms of accessibility. For visually impaired folks, having PDFs on a website obviously is a big no-no. So moving to those automated forms, again, it supports the policy objective for inclusiveness. I think that's a good example. That's one that was done in-house, but using existing tool sets. Similarly, for the large-scale projects, like for example, we're replacing the case management system alongside the circuit court clerk right now with a Tyler Odyssey product. And rather than building it from scratch, we're replacing a 40-year-old mainframe technology with a new off-the-shelf product, which is a leader in this space. So ideally, we will leapfrog the technologies, which improves both security as well as long-term support. It does require vendors. So again, I think your question is apt, like how much of that is vendor, how much is staff? But a lot of the long-term support is contemplated with staff. So our project managers those are our employees. Our security folks, yes, we have a virtual monitoring with a third party, but we also have an awful lot of analysts in-house, and they're the ones that are doing the engineering review of that solution as we put it in place. There's certainly other examples. I wish I could give you a sort of a percentage, but I think it really is case by case, as the chairman said. Sorry for being long-winded.
It's really helpful. Thank you for adding to that. Josh, you want to get the next one?
Yes, I would love to. And I had one, I was following along with that answer well enough that I completely forgot which question I wanted. Oh, yeah. So do you have any, this is probably more of a question for the commissioner, but do you have any advice for people who are interested in getting into politics or elected office in Chicago, Cook County?
Yes. I love that question. I did, when I was talking about my background, I didn't really mention, my education. I'm a graduate from DePaul University. I studied political science and double minored in environmental science and LGBTQ studies. I didn't learn until my freshman year of college that you didn't have to be 18 to volunteer in elections. Or else I would have gotten involved a lot earlier. I've been obsessed with precinct level data output since the 2000 election. I started paying attention to what was coming in county by county. Every single election, I'm such a geek. I have all the screens up. It doesn't matter if it's Virginia, Illinois, Wisconsin, what have you. I'm watching those results come in because for some reason it fascinates me. But when I started at DePaul, I started volunteering for a bunch of environmental groups, Sierra Club, as well as many others, and got involved really with volunteer work in that arena, which really helped widen my network, and I got to meet some really incredible folks. who were leading the fight in the environmental arena. And then I had the opportunity to intern for an older woman my sophomore year of college. And I thought that was an incredible opportunity. It taught me, how constituent services operates out of a local official's office. But that also connected me to a whole new network of folks and led me to the first campaign I volunteered for, which was now current State Senator Rob Martwick when he was elected state rep in 2012. Incredible individuals. He's the type of person who, takes his volunteers and really wants to see them build towards success. And I learned so much knocking doors on that campaign, talking to voters. I say, if you are interested in politics and you want to get involved, volunteering on local campaigns is one of the best ways to start, because you're going to, for one, get to meet the candidate. You're going to get to meet the campaign staff. You're going to learn how to talk to other voters in your neighborhood. I love knocking doors. When I ran the first time, I knocked 45,000 doors in a year. I got elected and finally went to the chiropractor because I wouldn't go during the campaign, and found out that I had 3 herniated discs from all the doors I had knocked. But it was worth it. But for me, you really learn a lot as you're going door to door, talking about a candidate, hearing the issues that are important to voters in your local area, which is always going to be critical if you aspire to run in the future. I represent the Northwest suburbs, but I was elected by my residents here, and it's always critical that the issues that are on the ground. And you can only get that by meeting as many of your constituents as possible. And so I still go out there hitting the doors, talking to local voters, hearing what issues are top of mind. That has shifted a lot over the last 3 years, but I say get involved, volunteer, and try to grow your network. Never delete any single contact in your phone, because if you do run for office, you're going to want that contact.
I guess related to that, were there issues that were important to people in your constituents that surprised you?
That surprised me. Well, the constant questions concerning concerns about property tax did not concern me. But I know this will be a shock to almost everyone who's listening. Cook County has not raised our property tax levy since 1994. And that's important for folks to know. We might send out the bill, but those increases usually are being realized based on other taxing bodies like our local schools, fire districts, municipalities, etc. Issues that surprised me as I was going door to door, one that really sticks out to me is a grandmother's door that I knocked in Elgin. And she shared with me how in the early teens, her grandson ended up coming down with schizophrenia. And they were trying to find any support, right, to make sure that he can get the type of health services that he required. And they were told it would take 2 years to get a bed in Illinois, that the best option were to get them arrested so that they could get mental health services through our jail. And ultimately, her grandson ended up only being able to find health services for his schizophrenia in Texas. And that it was crushing. Can you imagine talking to a grandma and their grandson could only get assistance in Texas, states away? So that really, not only, I will say firsthand, I would not have been elected to office had I not had access to mental health services through my youth. As an LGBT person, I guess I didn't hide it well enough. I was bullied for many years when I was going through my K through 12 education. And had I not had access to mental health, I don't know where I would be today, or if I would be here today. So mental health has always been a focus and something that I've wanted to push forward, but it was stories like that I was hearing at the doors that really made me recognize the totality of the lack of access that exists in Illinois. I don't know, a lot of the so when I'm knocking doors, a lot of it does get difficult for folks to share, issues that are top of mind. Property tax definitely is usually number one. I will say what was exciting, we did 12 different town halls to kind of get a feel of how folks in my district wanted us to spend the ARPA dollars, the American Rescue Plan Act dollars that we were getting from the federal government. Cook County got $1 billion. And some of the most creative ideas that we received were actually at Elk Grove High School from a bunch of high school students. It was amazing. It made me have so much hope for Gen Z and the future ahead. But they mentioned the need for more assistance in mental health, for vastly expanding public transportation in the northwest suburbs, for finding access for high school graduates to find good paying jobs so that they could stay here in the northwest suburbs.
Great. Thanks for sharing all of that. That's really great. I think maybe we have time for one or two more. So yeah, I wanted to get a question in. You had mentioned that you earlier on in your career, you volunteered for a lot of environmental organizations, and I saw you mentioned that as a top priority as for the topics that you're very passionate about. So the state passed this really progressive climate legislation last year, and there are many goals in there, but decarbonization of the state was a big one. I think they're trying to decarbonize the power by like 2045. So can you share more about, like, obviously Cook County is a huge part of the state. What is Cook County doing to help realize that goal of decarbonization by 2050?
Thank you for that question. No, I was really excited to see CJA pass. So these are exciting times here in Illinois, and we're really leading the way in terms of seeing that clean energy future. At the county, I was one of the advocates on the board who helped push the lever so that it wasn't a goal of going carbon neutral at the county at 2050, but moving that line to 2030. So we are in the process trying to evaluate how we could move all county buildings to clean energy sources by 2030. We're also working to find ways to where, for example, one of my top questions, every time we're remodeling a roof at the county, every time one of those votes comes before me, I'm always asking, okay, well, once we're able to afford the solar panels, will that roof be able to withstand them? So I'm always making sure that our roofing projects allow us for that clean energy option in the years ahead. They will not come forward with a package to vote before the board on new purchasing of vehicles unless they are the most fuel efficient options on the market, because they got sick of me pushing and asking those questions. So we're really working hard to try to move us in that direction. For those of you with a science background, I'm sure this is a critical moment, and we have to act quickly if we're going to be able to hopefully prevent the worst impacts of climate change.
I think we got time for one more, Josh.
Yeah. You mentioned the federal infrastructure money earlier. Can you talk about the plans to make sure that Cook County's portion of that is spent?
You broke up after you said spent.
Wonderfully. Can you talk about Cook County's plans to make sure that that's spent equitably?
Oh, equitably.
Equitably, yes.
Okay, yeah. Sorry, he cut out again.
Your mic
I heard a little bit of
it.
Equitably.
There we go.
Oh goodness.
So even going back to CARES Act, we have had a core focus to ensure that the distribution of these federal dollars to local communities and projects are done in the most equitable manner possible. For example, in CARES Act, when it came to municipalities receiving their dollars, it was based, 1/3 was based on their population, 1/3 was based on the socioeconomic reality of that community, and 1/3 was based on the level of COVID, as well as the health conditions on the floor in that municipality. So that helped us ensure that we were dividing those dollars in the most equitable fashion to make sure that we were prioritizing some of the most disinvested communities around Cook. So that was critical. When it comes to how we're utilizing the dollars in ARPA, one, and something that we've talked about often at the technology committee, for example, is expanding broadband access county-wide. There's a lot of communities that don't have adequate broadband service. That's something we're 100% trying to address with some of the ARPA dollars. 60 million is going toward health projects, one of which is that mental health department that I had mentioned. We're also going to be expanding the number of therapists at our clinics, our Cook County clinics around the county. In terms of transportation dollars, I see that we're almost at 8. We're utilizing what we did with CARES Act with ARPA dollars as well. So we are trying to make sure that historically disinvested communities throughout Cook are prioritized. Now, one important component, though, is the focus of those dollars for suburban Cook County, because the city of Chicago got its own allotment. So you may have noticed earlier when I said the vote ordinance only covers suburban Cook County. There's certain things that we do at the county that are only suburban focused, even though there are county commissioners that are elected in the city of Chicago.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for that presentation and for answering our wide array of different types of questions.
I wish we had more time.
No.
Yeah, I know, it flew by. Yeah, thanks again, Commissioner. This is really great. Yeah, we definitely appreciate your time and willing to sort of dive into the weeds with us a little bit. For the folks on the live stream, we are about wrapped up here. I think if I put up the slide with sort of the next step. For folks who want to stick around, we do have a Zoom call that everyone's welcome to join. That's where you'll get to meet some fellow Hacknighters and join some of the breakout groups that are happening tonight. So the link is here. It's bit.ly/CHN remote Zoom. We'll drop that in the live chat as well so people can go straight there. And I think with that, we'll say thank you again to our commissioner for presenting and everyone else. Go for